Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Way We Grow podcast, a production of the Craft Growers Network. I'm your host, Nick Wolfe. Today, our guest is none other than Dog Doctor. You can find him and his work at DogDoctorOfficial on Instagram, Grow Diaries, and on YouTube. Mr. Dog Doctor, how are you doing today?
Hi Nick, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor and I'm feeling very humbled. Thank you so much. I'm doing great, enjoying the winter and the range that we're waiting for spring to come. Apart from that, living life in the moment as most as I can. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah, I feel like that's how a lot of us are feeling, just waiting for spring to get here so we can start to plan some outdoor grows or, I know that for indoor growers, you got to start to think about a little more heat, maybe heat mitigation and stuff like that. So that's definitely, it's an important time of year for growers in general. Um, yeah. What's new in your grow world though? I feel like, you're always doing something new in your grow, and from every time that I've listened to you talk about it on like growing with my fellow growers or just chatted with you on Instagram, you're always doing something new. So what's new for you?
At the moment, I'm searching for that runs again. I lost that runs that actually the one that the photo that you took in a few days ago on Instagram. 2 summers ago, I lost her to a heat wave, and Zamnese started a contest on Grow Diaries, which they do a lot of it. And the seeds they were providing for the contest were nonetheless the Zamnese, so the runs. So I decided to, okay, we have the setup from Trollmaster now. I did one run with it. Let's test the setup now in a different way. I'm changing a few parameters in there because it's my second time running under Canopy lights and the spectrum tuning. So I like to learn by mistakes. I see what others do and try to learn by their mistakes also. But I truly believe that making the mistakes ourselves, we learn in a different way than seeing others making mistakes. Of course, I'm not chasing those mistakes to be made, but I know that when growing and when everybody's growing and trying new things, that mistakes are there to be made. So lessons
Definitely.
are there to be learned. And right now, I'm learning how to spectrum tuning and how to manage the inner canopy lights. Last run, I flipped them into flower, and only at week 2, more or less, I connected the inner canopy lights. This time, instead of that, I connected straight away from the moment I did 48 hours dark. I do 48 hours dark before flipping into flower. To my understanding, I'm not saying this is the best way or the way to do it. To my understanding, this helps triggering the plants into flower mode, meaning that instead of waiting 1 week and something for that first pre-flowers to start showing that there are flowering 3 4 days only, I already start to see the little bugs, and I honestly believe it's that 48 hours dark that make that happening faster. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Again,
you
this.
definitely see a lot of people using practices like that. I know it was really popular for a while, and I've even seen people in the commercial space use it um, because of their belief that it does help trigger the flowering process sooner. And if the end goal is to get as many different harvests as you can, then starting the flower cycle sooner when you initiate flower as well, it should potentially bring down um, the overall flowering time. So I could see how that could be beneficial. I've never really found any success with it myself, but I think sometimes it's just based on the space, perhaps.
Exactly. What works here in my space may not work in your space or in somebody else's space because all space are conditions are different. I encourage everybody to try all methods that they feel that it's something that they would like. Not all at the same time, otherwise, if something doesn't work, you don't know what it is. But this way, you can find the better way for yourself, for your space, for your growth, for your needs. Some people have more time to be with the plants, others don't have time to be with the plants. So just in here, you have to find different medium. For instance, if you want to do cocoa and no and do hand water, maybe you shouldn't. You need to be with your plants every day. If you have a water system, maybe you don't have to be with your plants every day. If you're doing soil, it can be more forgiving because it takes longer to dry also, so it retains the water longer. So every case is a different case. In my opinion, home growers, they don't need to go hydroponic if you have a big facility, I can see why you do that because of the production and how fast it is and how easy it is to correct everything. Something is wrong now, I just flush and start again, and in one day, plants are again thriving. If you are home growing, looking for better quality, for a better connection with the plant, for all of it, the soil, it's more forgiving. In my humble opinion, the flavor in the end is also better from soil than it is from rock wool and stuff like that. Again, this is a personal opinion.
For sure.
There's no tests about. I did not test. Let's see this. So this is but no. From my experience and from my easy way of growing, I am with my plants every day. But still, sometimes from time to time, I don't have time to go there 1 2 days because life happens and something. Soil and the outer pots. Oh my God, they were a bless coming in my life, and one that I really really appreciate of this autopod system is it's amazing. It's really
Nice.
amazing how easy it makes one's life, and it works on gravity or on density or whatever you want to call it, but the weight of the water brings it down, meaning even if there is no electricity, plants will drink as they please. And
Yeah,
they
that's definitely something that I've seen a lot of home growers get a lot of success with because it is easy and it makes it so that you don't have to worry too much about certain aspects of the grow, especially if you are running like some sort of living soil where you need to maintain a certain moisture content for the biological activity to continue. You know, in some cases, like with hydroponics and stuff, I would say that maybe the autopot system isn't the most ideal because you can't really control a good dry back uh,
there's no
interval.
dryback.
Yeah,
There's
it
no dryback. Sorry.
and you can probably build up salts pretty quickly too if you're feeding too high with something like that. So yeah, that's uh, I I've seen a lot of people use it. I haven't personally tried them out, but I've always been interested in them. But you know, earlier in the conversation, you started talking about how you are on your second run of under canopy lighting, and as a commercial grower, I've been using it for a little while now, and I love them. So I wanted to find out what your experience with them has been, considering it is kind of one of those things that is it's still fairly new in the cannabis industry and the home growing space, and a lot of people are still fairly hesitant to jump in to use them because you do increase the heat, you increase your overall like nutrient consumption requirements for the plant, especially since it's LED. But yeah, what are some of your experiences with that off of the first run that you had with them?
Honestly, I loved it. And the results spoke by themselves. But yes, once you plug them in, there's a lot of new factors that need to tune in. Heat will go up, meaning that your humidity needs to go up also, because you need to keep your VPD more or less, and you don't need to make the perfect VPD, but you need to keep your numbers close enough. Otherwise, they will be in balance on the nutritions, and then the plants will not go and they will sweat more. Everything will be more, meaning they will be needing higher EC. So if you used to work with lower EC and you're bringing in the canopy lights, trust me, you will have to make bigger feedings because there will be more plant mass needing food. Let's thinking in basics. Before, I'm taking all my light from here, meaning all my grow is here. Whatever it's down here, it's not needing it. That's why we lollipop it, because it would not grow. It became popcorn and stuff. Right now we have light coming from here also, meaning that they're growing here, but they are also growing down here. So that will require energy, that will require nutrients, that will require everything. That the tops, so it's not doubling everything, but it's checking and reading the plants and see how much they are eating, checking the runoffs. I like to do the runoffs. In other pots it's difficult, but I have the WCS sensor that tells me what's in the soil. So I know more or less that if I'm feeding 1.5 EC and I'm 1.6 or 1.4, I know that she's eating more or less what I'm feeding her. And from there I can give her up more or not less and see if she's building up and I'm giving her more, but she's not eating more. The numbers are going more are accumulating there, They do not want. This is how I control my runoffs in the autopots. If I'm not doing autopots, I water. If the EC that goes in is 1.5 and the one coming out is 1, she needs more food. If the EC that goes in is 1.5 and the one coming out is 2.0, she needs less food or just water for the next one or something. And this is how I balance, or I try to balance the best I can, the nutrition into my plants.
So you always try to keep somewhat of a consistent level of pour water EC, um, rather than having it, do any sort of like generative steering towards a higher EC at the beginning of flower and then reducing it towards the bulking period or anything like that.
More or less, I start increasing my C in veg until flower, and then in flower I again increase it with the P's and the K's and all the extra boosters that we are giving them. This if I'm doing in an organic way or organic on mineral. If I'm just doing minerals, which I am doing now with the Troll Master, I'm doing the Aptus All and Clean program, which is just minerals, no organic stuff in there. This brings higher ECs, but plants seems to like it. They started higher. Before I was doing zero point 0.8 in veg, now I'm doing 1.3 in veg, and I start flower with 1.5 and I finish around 2.0. This last year for me was unthinkable. Unthinkable. I did not understand how people would go with EC so high. Now I understand it's everything else. It's like if you go and train into a gym full of oxygen and the best conditions, you will need more minerals, more vitamins, more to keep up your body. Plants
For
are, I
sure.
believe that they work the same. And to my opinion, they don't care if it's organic, mineral, synthetic. The plant itself needs NPK, macro, micronutrients, and everything else. If
Right.
you provide them in Y, X, or whatever form that you prefer to you, they will receive it and they will thank you for that. The end product, honestly, I also believe that it's raw talk and it's our way of thinking that makes us believe that organic is better than synthetic or mineral. But in the end, if I give you a really good flower, synthetic, organic, or mineral, well cured, well proper, and most will not know the difference. I'm not
For
saying that
sure.
it's undescribable, but you will not know unless you grow. But we as growers, we know. And I grow for
Yep.
myself, so I like the organics and the minerals. I don't go synthetics myself.
Yeah, I've always found that like the best flower that I could ever grow at home was um either in a like a really large living soil pot, like a 30-gallon pot or better, um, or using um, cocoa coir and like a just a really basic like Jax 321 or JR Crop Tech or any of these sort of like salt-based fertilizers that have all the macro and micros in one side and then the nitrogen and calcium in another. And you just mix those up either in equal parts or depending on the formula, whatever ratio it is, and then adding some sort of biology to the substrate,
Enzymes
uh,
and
like an earthworm casting tea
stuff.
or just any other microbiology that you can get in there to help kind of initiate those responses in the plant. Like there's the chitin response pathways, and then there's what else? There's like the salicylic acid pathways that can be triggered if the plant comes in contact with them in the root zone. And from what I've always experienced is that it tends to produce a more robust cannabinoid and terpene profile. Um, and I really liked it in the hydroponic setting because then you get the speed of growth, you can get the potential for a greater yield if you have the correct irrigation and environmental practices in place. And in my case, in like in a lot of instances, sometimes I think of all that microbial activity in living soils. And if you do have any sort of sporulation events where you have mushrooms that are growing or other fungus that's growing, and you get all those spores up into the plant matter, then a lot of that, there are potential for mycotoxins and stuff like that when you're combusting cannabis, but some of them are also destroyed by combustion. So I always just went with I want to keep it a little bit cleaner, but yeah, try to throw a little bit of some sort of microbial activity in the soil. But I've, I was always, before I had to stop growing at home, I I wanted to do those in auto pots because you do get that benefit of the constant moisture, and you can also feed through it as well, like you're saying, at a lower EC.
I'm seeing higher ECCs now also. I with the whole system, the pipes were a little bit too thin, and if you put too much stuff in there, it would build up stuff. The organic would not work very
Sure.
nice in there. With the new lines, the blue lines, black, whatever color you get, they are pipes. So whatever you put in there, organic or not, it will go through. Of course, after one, you need to clean it up, but this is normal procedure that you have to do with any system, hydroponic or not. If you wanna avoid problems, you have to keep it all clean from run to run and keep it cleaning if needed during the run. And this is one of the things that people don't do. That people don't they think that it's not important. Oh, it's just one run. Or no, it's very important every run to set up to zero, in my humble opinion,
Yeah.
because you don't want to bring any issue that it was not present in the previous run, but it was starting to be present, but it was a late present, so you did not see it, and now you start this one, but it's there. So like mildew, mold, and stuff, it stay there. The spores, man. I ionize. This is how you say it. I ionize my tents. I clean it, I bleach it, I clean it again, and in the end, I have a ionizer. I can show you. Actually, it's here. 1 second. Put this in there, and what this does is this divides
Oh,
the oxygen molecule in two, and this kills everything inside: bacteria, non-bacteria, mold, mildews, whatever spore you have in there, it will be
yeah.
dead.
It's
After
a
this is
like a
not
ozone generator.
exactly. It's exactly that. So you cannot breathe it, but I close the tent, I put the lights on so that it's very hot inside it, or the hotter I can. I leave it there for half an hour, and in for a 4x4, it's more than enough.
Cool.
There's
Yeah, there's commercial facilities that use thermal protocols when they're cleaning their rooms, and they'll like maintain a certain temperature for a certain time frame, and it will help destroy any sort of biology that's still in there.
yes, sir. Now we have UV something, UVC, that they're using to kill bugs and stuff, and mold and mildew. I'm not sure if it's UVC, I'm speaking by head. But facilities are using, and now home growers are using it also. Future of Grow, which is a brand of from Swiss, just released it, and Grandmaster Level also did. It's you and it's something that you just run half an hour on the grow, and it's supposed to kill gnats, trips, and everything. I don't know. I did not try it, but I'm very curious about
Yeah,
that
they're
pest
like
management.
the predator. Um,
Yes,
well, yeah, there are so many new technologies that are kind of popping up that are either like a light-based pest prevention, and then you also have that ozone generator, which is nothing new, but I've definitely started to see people use it more often because it is a very effective tool.
it is a crazy new tool, and people are using it. And I'm curious to bring it into the grow actually, and to see, because trips and nets, it's something that in the beginning I was paranoid when I was growing in rock wool. Everything needs to be sterilized and this and that. And over the years, when I moved myself to soil and completely to soil, and in organics, I start to understand that it's normal for us to have bugs. They're part of the nature, so I can to accept them. But we need to control them. And what I do to control, it's nematodes, it's a bunch of predators and this and that. It's something that you keep, and you need to keep buying and getting. If I can get now a lamp that I place it in the tent, and half an hour a day I run it, and this will do the exact same management, man, this is
That's intriguing.
it's interesting. I heard about machines with lasers on big facilities that goes and they identify with AI. They identify the trip and the pest, and they just kill the that one.
Yeah, my
So
dad was
that's the
just talking about
opportunity.
that to me. That's really funny. That's
It's
yeah, it's something that I've seen as well. I feel like it's still in the process of being perfected though, because if that was so efficient, drones are pretty cheap nowadays, and lasers aren't necessarily the most advanced technology. And with the AI learning and stuff, it doesn't seem like it would be excessively cost prohibitive. Where almost any commercial facility, if you can just buy something like that rather than spray stuff, and because the sprays, those are all consumables, so you have to continuously purchase them, and they're not the cheapest, especially when you get into some of the different chemistries that you might be using. So, yeah, something like that. If it did work, I feel like we would see it a lot more. So I'm still kind of hesitant. Does it
it's a new
work, or
world.
is it something that's still in the process of being developed and perfected? Um,
On
yeah,
paper sounds amazing.
yeah.
I
On
mean,
paper, it does sound amazing.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad we kind of had this little ramble here to start off the conversation, but I'm gonna kind of steer us back into some of the questions that I have for us
Let's go.
today.
Let's go, please.
Cool. So, I always like to find out where your journey with plants started, and whether it was with cannabis, or, if you grew up in a household that had a vegetable garden or something along those lines. But what
More
was
or less.
your, for sure,
So,
what were your first experiences with plants, and what led you into where you are today with cannabis?
so in my family, they're farmers also. I have farmers in the family, but I was a city boy. I was raised in the city, going to the farm, and raised into the city. But I always had contact. I'm not. I was that kid that when people ask what a tomato is, or an apple, or a carrot, or where does the meat came from, I knew. For me, it was normal. I grew. I knew that the meat is from the cow, and that they kill the pig, and that the chicken. So this was always something that was very into my blood, and still is, I believe, and still is. And but cannabis came to me, or weed came to me. I started smoking very early, about 13, something like this. And then at 15, more or less, one seed came in the traditional. I know this is the cliche story, but it is what it is. It
Yeah.
comes with seeds. We put the seed in soil, and bam, it grows something. And oh, okay, it's this easy. Let's try this. And we started from there, and then there's going up and overs, and we start looking for seeds and things. And time passes, and about let's say so. It's still in the past, about a few decades ago. I started growing for myself seriously. Like, okay, I'm sick of everybody else's weeds. Each time I grow a plant, mini plant, big plant, it's always better than anything that I buy commercial. At least to me, it sounds better. I don't know if it is or not, but I don't care. So when I started, one thing led to the other, and it's been a few decades now that I'm kind of engaged with this. When I travel, I have to have somebody taking care of them. That somebody needs to be somebody from my family, because I don't talk with nobody else where I am about this. Nobody really knows. I've been doing this for decades, and a handful of people knows because of the situations that we live in here. Once it's became like tomatoes or like anything else, I don't care, but I have to care for now. Not that I
Yeah.
think that I'm doing anything wrong, but they think it is wrong, so we're living by their rules. And one thing led to the other, and then in about the 2000s, I start becoming really serious. I start investing in whatever and researching and not just growing, trying to understand what I grow, what are the genetics, why this genetic does this, why that does that, what is a phenotype, and one thing led to the other. This always was a solo journey for myself. Then COVID hits, and everybody stays home. Nobody can go anywhere. Supposedly, everything is going bananas, and I'm home. And what I do home, I grow.
Grow plants.
you
Yeah.
know. So I get even more deeper into it. I start researching, like studying, more or less, and I start going online. Something that for me was no. I never did forums. I never did anything because, man, why would I do that? There's no point. And I started going online. I found a few channels on YouTube. In this case, I found the Let's Be Buds and I found GMLs. I started getting LEDs that time was the first time I get LEDs before it was all HPS. And one of the days I decided to GML was saying, "Oh, if you guys want to come in and ask questions," and man, why not? So I say my first time growing LEDs. That's where I met Spartan and my lead online. Then from there I start following him and I follow my fellow home grows and everything else. And this was how I began to go online. And since this was happening, I decided, okay, so let's make an Instagram account. Even if I don't share any photos, I can follow other people specific because I cannot do this with my private account because of the paranoias. So I created an account on Instagram, and one thing led to the other. Time started passing, and about a year after I had my Instagram accounts, Aptus Olin came to me and asked me why I did not do any posts. Because I was tagging them in history stories and stuff like that, because that was the nutrient line that I was using. And he told me, oh, if you start posting some photos or some content the same way you're doing on your stories, you don't need to do anything else. We can sponsor you. And that's when I realized, okay, there might be something else more here than just me growing, and this passion can actually turn into something bigger. I don't know. And I started to post online. This was about 3 years ago, I think. And then one thing led to the other, and honestly, everything is happening so fast, and I'm feeling very humbled and blessed with not blessed because I don't like the word blessed because it's be less and I like to be more and I want everybody to be more, not less. But I feel very grateful with how things are coming because there's podcasts happening, there's the Instagram account is going up, and I love to talk about these plants. I love when people come to me and tell me something that I did wrong because I didn't know I did it wrong and I learned from that. And I love to help people when I see, I know many take this as a personal thing and, oh, I'm not criticizing you. I'm giving you the way I do things, and the community is growing, and now with the YouTube is also growing a new community that I was not expecting. Videos are coming out, and I'm loving this is bringing me even more closer to the plants than I was before, because now it's not just being there looking at the plant, taking care of the plant. Now when I'm filming, when I'm looking for details, I'm seeing things that I never saw before, and I'm noticing things in the way that plants grows, in the way that everything evolves, especially when you make a time lapse. You see how they move, how they grow, how they spin, everything a plant does. It's not just this, no. She's moving all day around and changing forms and goes and came. It's alive, it's beautiful, and I'm loving this creating content and creating things.
That's awesome.
And
I mean, it's
yeah,
obvious you have a lot of passion for the plant, and it's there's like an art form, I feel like, to a lot of the content that you do show, where it's not just a picture of a plant or some impressive yield or a bag full of awesome looking flowers or something. It's more of the grow itself and how you're growing. What are some of the things that you like to do in your garden that you might think are unique to your situation that other people might not know about how you grow currently?
depending if I'm growing out of flowers or if I'm growing normal plant, not normal, they're all normal, sorry. If I'm growing feminized or regular seeds, I grow different. For out of flowers, for instance, I don't top. Most people like topping or not topping. I don't top not because I don't top, it's just because I don't like to touch them. I see the auto flowers as something that you grow and is not there to give you more work. It's just there to assist you. So what I do with auto flowers is I leaf bend. I only leaf bend them. And since I start only leaf bend them, they start to grow way more and bigger, and I'm getting big auto flowers. I really like this leaf bending on the auto flower.
What do
On
you mean by
the
leaf bending?
Okay, so plants they grow and then the new leaf came here that is covering the end. Can you see this now?
Yes.
that is covering the under it. So what I do, I
Oh,
grab this
okay.
leaf and I put it under the one that is down. So
Got it. Like
basically,
leaf tucking is another one that I've heard people use for that,
also
where
it's
they'll tuck the leaves under the nodes. I get it.
exactly, and this will bring
Cool.
the nuts off. The leaves are still there, you're not defoliating. They will grow under it, and this helps autoflower. From my experience, that helps autoflowers grow more even canopy without being that tree that everybody likes. And it's a Christmas tree. It's nice, but then you have this top up here getting 1,000 ppfd and have this one down here getting 300.
Yeah.
This
That's
helps
not
plants to grow more or less all the same size, and all the canopy from one plant will be experiencing the same ppfds, sort of.
cool. Do you do any like bending of the tip of the plant where you like will bend the top down? I know you say you don't top it, but sometimes I've seen people they'll just kind of
Super
like bend
crops,
it over lightly.
super cropping. I do not on autoflowers. On autoflowers, I believe that high stress trainings in autoflowers it's going to result in less weight, not quality, but in not so many products.
For
Why?
sure.
Because an autoflower, she's doing what the fuck she wants. She's on her roads. Whatever you do to her, she's on her own.
Yep.
If you stress her, she will take time as other plants have to bounce back. But that time that she's bouncing back, it's not on hold. Keeps going, meaning her veg time keeps going or her flower time keeps going. In the end, that stress it's something that it did not make you more time. If you're running feminized or regular seeds, you can stress a plant. You wait for her to bounce back. You can stress her again. You wait, and when she's okay, you flip it to flower. Out of flowers, they will run whatever they want. When they want to flip to
Right.
flower, they will. So, in my humble opinion, out of flowers, we are there to assist them on their needs. So, by looking at them, by leaf bending, whatever techniques you like to use it, you're just there to assist, not to stress her.
For sure. Do you
This
do
is
any up potting when you grow autoflowers? I know some people will um, heavily push back against doing up pots, but I always found that it worked really well for autoflowers as long as you didn't damage the roots when you were
I do all
transplanting
the
it.
time. I do
Yeah,
three of them. Yeah. I like to
three
see
up
the
pots.
roots, and I
Yeah,
like to put mycorrhizal in the roots. And if
cool.
I don't do transplants, I cannot do that. I either use the pro-mix soil, which has the mycorrhizal already in it, but I still like to gently see the roots and give a sprinkle extra of mycorrhizal in there, and then put it in the soil. And I really see the roots bouncing big. And they say
Cool.
bigger roots, bigger fruits, which is not always
Definitely.
the case. If you're growing hydroponics, you can have big fruits in small cups. So, but I grow soil, so bigger roots in soil makes bigger fruits, and the mycorrhizal, it's a really amazing fungi, man. It's the network it creates there, the uptaking of the nutrients. It also helps breaking things in the soil. Plants get more susceptible. They get stronger also, and then if you complement this with, for instance, monosilica, we'll get a structure on their cells thicker. We'll get them stronger. We'll create little layers that get everything. But and it's like some people say, "Oh, you don't need this." Or, no, everything is just a tiny little thing. But in the end, it's 2% from this monosilica, 2% from the mycorrhizal, 2%. In the end, it's this much percentage, and that's on the overall results. To my experience, makes a lot of difference.
For sure. Definitely in a living soil situation, I can agree with that. What mycorrhizal fungi do you like to use?
I only use Aptos for everything.
Oh,
I've
cool.
converted myself to Aptos 5 years ago. Then 3 years ago I get sponsored. So now, and I honestly don't see myself going back to anything else because I see this as a marriage. When you find a good woman, I know there's more good women in the world, but why would I be looking at them? Why would I be curious about them if I have my wife? You know what I mean? It's my wife. So I
Yeah,
see the nutrients and my relation with Aptos like that also. And honestly, and this is really my opinion. I was a believer before being sponsored, and I keep being a believer. It works amazing. It's not it's a concentrated product, meaning I'm not buying water. Most of the bottles that you get in the market on the labels, I'm not saying they are better or worse, but the percentage of water comparing to the nutrients, it's much bigger, meaning you have to buy many more times. After this super concentrated, man. You use tiny little bits. It's more expensive. I was paying more for the nutrients, yes, but they were going triple the time that other labels were doing. So in the end, it was not more expensive.
For sure.
They have one thing that for me it's crucial in any grow, which is the regulator, which is for you. You guys have there as a facilitator on the Aptos, and you have something similar, which is power side. Basically, it's monosilica, which is active and ready for the plant. It's not silica, but because silica goes in the soil, needs to break down, takes time to get available to the plant. It's different. It's good, but it takes time. The monosilica formula, it's straight away available for the plant, meaning that she will
Right.
drink it straight away, and straight away she will feel it. It's like taking, I don't know, the steroids. You'll feel straight away. I'm not saying that it is steroids, and it's the first thing that goes in my reservoir always, always, and it should be the first thing in any reservoir because nutrients they need to go in an order. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, you're too paranoid. No, I'm not. Try and put the silica after you put the Calmac and tell me what you see in the water, and
Yeah,
then
you're
do
gonna
the
get
same.
precipitation.
Yeah, the other way around, and you get a clean water. So this means that there's a chemic reaction. Everything needs to go in an order. First
For
goes
sure.
monosilica, then goes whatever the rest of your line is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've experienced like mixing something in the wrong order before and just learned from that experience. And I think one of them was I was using potassium silicate to make a solution for a pH down or an alkalizer for my nutrient water, and I added a bunch of sulfuric acid to the potassium silicate because we had I think we just had some like acid spill or something and we needed to clean it up. And so we used the alkalizer to counteract it. And it turned into a gel because the silica turned into silicon
Yep.
and it turned into that actual like it had that chemical reaction. And I was like, wow, that's a huge precipitation event, and that would cause such major clogging if anything like that were to happen through some sort of irrigation line or something.
Yep.
Obviously, you wouldn't be mixing bases and acids in an irrigation line,
No,
um,
but
but it
makes
can
the point
happen, and
of how
it's yeah,
important it is and how chemical everything it is. It's like this by itself it's nothing. This by itself it's nothing. This by itself it's a bomb.
yep, and also the concentration of those different constituents when you're mixing them in solution is also important. Like another example that I've had is we I would use magnesium sulfate and calcium chloride when I would flush the plants at the end of a cycle for just a couple days, but I wanted to maintain the high calcium levels as well as magnesium because it's in a cocoa substrate, and there's other reasons why there, but to make a long story short, I would mix them in individually, and I was like, well, why can't I mix these together? And I found out, well, because it makes calcium sulfate when you mix magnesium sulfate with calcium chloride, and calcium sulfate is it just precipitates out of solution instantly almost, and you get this huge layer of like calcium sulfate dust at the bottom, gypsum basically at the bottom of the of the mix that you made. So different things like that are really interesting to look at. And when you see something so drastic like one of the two examples I gave, you do realize that it is important, even in smaller amounts, to make sure that everything's mixed properly. Especially when you do start to play with higher ECs. I don't know about like 2.0 to 2.5, but if you start to get up to like 3 to 4, then you can definitely start to see different chemical reactions take place if things are mixed in the wrong order.
Never did 3C. For me that's still I don't know. I might get there with the under canopy lights with turning in and good with perfect conditions. But for now, 2.4, 2.5 was the highest I went last run, and this was the highest I went ever
For
on
sure.
soil.
Do you use supplemental CO2?
No, but I have the heater on the house is gas, so we are in winter time. So for the most time, that turning just having the heater on, it's enough to bring the numbers higher. And
For
then
sure.
it's me, my family, and the dogs, and I build this in a way that the whole circulation from the house came straight into the grow room, meaning that all that we breathe doesn't go out the other ways. The other ways are to
Cool.
bring air in. So I always get the minimum 600, 700 ppms in there, and if the heater is on, it goes up to 1.5 to 2, and they're happy with that. So, oh, that's
Cool.
too high. No, it's not too high. They can take it up to 3 and 4 and 5 and ppm. It's not perfect for them, but they can handle it. It's like oh, you're giving them 1,200 ppfd. Dude, go and take your measurement outside, middle of the day in the sun, and tell me what you reach.
Right.
You go up to
Well,
5, 6, 7, depending on where you are in the world. So,
and also if you are having higher than ambient levels of CO2, then the plants can definitely photosynthesize at a higher rate, where they're not going to really be bothered by a higher light level. And then also, that's also where a higher EC of feed can come into play and be handy, because you will have just a higher overall assimilation rate of nutrients into the tissue of the plant. So you're going to need a lot more of a dense nutrient package in the root zone. And don't, if you do have those parameters, don't be worried about getting up in your EC, man. I mean, I've been running lately, but it is with supplemental CO2 at 1500 parts per million throughout all the light cycles and a high ppfd. We've been feeding at 4.5 EC, and it works really well. But you have to have a really clean nutrient to be able to run it like that. And I don't think you would be able to get away with that in an autopot system, because you do need some level of drain to waste where your
otherwise, you
runoff
will build up,
is,
and
yeah,
down
your
there, it's
runoff
that.
is pushing off that extra salt buildup.
Gotcha.
But with the high level of nutrients that are available in the correct ratios at that EC, you can see tremendous bud growth and overall plant health with a really well dialed in environment.
Obviously, you can do it because facilities are doing it, and you look at whatever they're doing, and it looks beautiful. So they're not doing soil; they're doing rock wool or cocoa or whatever. So it makes sense. This what you're saying of the build-ups, because on the auto pot you don't have the dry outs. It's myself that I close the pipes and I let it go for dry outs, and if I want to do top feeding on something. But the aqua valve, the way that that thing works is it's kind of like he has one rubber here and one rubber down here. When this rubber hits down here, it's this one releases, and when this comes and hits here, this one releases, meaning the plants get the water, the valves go like this, then she drinks the water, this comes down here, and once it's on it, it opens, it releases again, it will full again.
Sure.
But it's but the soil is always wet.
Yeah.
There's always, I don't know the exact percentage, but there's always at least 10-15% moist in there. So for living soil it's great, for soil it's great. I don't know how this worked with cocoa because I did not do cocoa in here, but yeah,
Well,
I
and you
can see
also
the
said you're using substrate monitoring, correct? So you're seeing the water content and the electrical conductivity within the substrate.
yes,
And
sir.
when you have that data available, it really opens up your eyes to what's going on in the root zone, and you can see more clearly as to how the plant is interacting with the nutrients that you're providing it, as well as the water that you're providing it. And a lot of people do get scared running higher ECs because they think it's building up in the soil. But if you can't see what's in there, then the only way you're going to tell if you are building up, things that you don't want in there, is if you're doing like a saturated paste test, or if you're sending off your substrate for analysis, or if you're running runoff checks where you're gathering runoff data through EC and pH. And unless you have all that information, then it's really hard to tell what's actually going on in there, unless you do have this substrate monitoring tool where you can follow a graph basically, and it shows you the
Yeah,
highs
it
and the
will be
lows
right.
and the trends over time, and you can see if it's been slowly raising up or slowly going down or staying steady, and you can make a lot of educated changes to what your inputs are based on that information. And it's unfortunate because so many of those substrate monitoring tools are extremely expensive. You know, it's like, yeah, to
This
anybody who's
makes
just listening, he's showing us his substrate monitoring
sorry,
just
yes.
right here. So that's, yeah, it's right there. It's information that you can look at, but it is expensive. I don't know if you're using like a Trollmaster substrate monitor, like one of their WCS
The WCS2, yes. Sensor,
monitors.
that's
Yeah,
exactly
so
what I'm using.
those are like really great pieces of equipment, but in a lot of cases, you know, they're really expensive to get
And you need to
even
have
just
the
one
whole
of them.
system also. You need to have
Yep,
the 10X or an Hydro-X or something.
exactly.
So
So it's not just the piece of equipment like the single item. I think Blue Labs has one that is just the
there's a lot
item.
of coming out now. There's Blue Lab. The good ones is the Blue Labs and the Troll Master. But now Mars Hydro it's done one. Spider Farm it's done one. AC Infinity also did one. And if you go Amazon and you look online, there's a lot of them from China, of course. I don't know how good or bad they work, but there's a lot of options, meaning that sooner or later, both Master and all the expensive labels, they are not expensive,
Right,
they're just better construction, so it's normal that it's more expensive. You don't pay the same for a Maserati that you pay for a Renault or for a Ford,
right.
so things
Well,
get
then,
different prices. So,
yeah, and
and
I use Arroya for our monitoring at the commercial facility, and they did come out with like the Arroya Go platform, but even still, the the startup price was like 1,500 or $2,000 US, and it came with like a 2 year subscription to being able to store your data, but after that you would have to pay a monthly fee in order to maintain access to all the data that they're providing. And the whole subscription service and not being able to just have that data based on you purchasing the equipment right there, and then just like using it locally, not even necessarily like trying to use any of the other services that they provide, you still would have to pay for it. And that can just become even more cost prohibitive in a lot of ways for people because like even with some of the other shows that you've interacted with in the past, like the cheap home grow, growing with my fellow growers show, the whole point of that show is to help people grow cheaply because
exactly,
cannabis is really expensive when you're going and buying it at a dispensary in the United States and anywhere else that does have
yeah,
access to
it's
either a
not an easy
recreational
habit.
or medical market. It's expensive and you can grow it for so much cheaper at home, but
It
a
can
lot of
get
people do
expensive.
struggle early on.
In the beginning, when you don't know and you think you need more than you think that you need, it's very easy to for a grow to become super expensive with the things
Yep.
that you buy and that you get. Then with overtime experience, you're starting to realize that what you need and what you don't need, and it becomes more cost effective and stuff like that. But it's still not a cheap hobby. It's not a
No.
cheap hobby, especially if you're passionate about it. There's always something new coming out and you want to try this and see that and that. I don't know. Some people like cars, they buy cars. Other people, when you like this, you'll go for the gadgets here, for the controllers, for the little things that do you need them? No, you don't need them to grow, but they will help your journey. They will which we're trying to be better than nature, which we will never be. But that's
Right.
that's our goal. It's to be better than nature. To be better than nature, which is impossible. Nobody can be better than God. This is just my opinion, of course. But we go, we try the lead, we try the extraction. What are we trying to do? Mimic God. We're trying to do what He does on the perfect way inside here with controls and with everything. And that takes money. And it's fun job. It's a fun, not a job, it's a fun hobby, but it's an expensive one. Honestly,
Yeah.
when you're an adult, any hobby that you have,
It's
it's an
expensive.
expensive hobby. It's
This is very
whatever you
true.
like, it's not, it's gonna be expensive.
Yeah, especially if you have some sort of passion or real desire to want to like learn as much as you can within that hobby. It'll drain your wallet in most
We will,
cases.
we will, we will. It's
Um,
very easy.
so you've been growing for, you said, over 20 years now?
More.
More? Cool. Yeah.
More. Yeah, it's more
Um,
than two
and,
decades now. Or it's there.
and yeah, and with the ideas in mind of what we were just talking about with new growers and how it's sometimes difficult for a new grower when they're starting off, how long did it take you to achieve your first harvest that you were extremely proud about?
That's a hard question and a very good one. Nobody ever did that. That one got me thinking. I don't know. Honestly, when I look back now, I'm really only happy with what I'm growing now for the past decade. Maybe it's maybe not even that. Because before that was a passion, but I love it. It was amazing. It was better than anything else I could get it anywhere. But now I see what I grow now, man. I see what I grew last year, and I see how I grow now, and I see difference.
Right.
I don't know if it's me growing better, if it's the me tuning in things better, if it's the everything else in conjunction that makes it, but it looks better, it tastes better. So I'm really proud of what I smoke now. But I was super proud of what I was smoking 10 years ago. So I think that we grow and we evolve. And the same way when somebody would come to you with weed and you were just a teenager and you will grab it, roll and smoke. And now when a friend comes to you with weed,
Analyzing it and
put it almost under the microscope, and there's a lot
yeah.
that you have to talk about that with. Before it was just weed, so we ourselves also evolve into someone different that is more picky, more exigent. I don't know how to express it with everything, which lead us to grow better, to search for terpenes, something that 10 years ago, terpenes, yes. What the hell is terpenes? I knew what it was terpenes, but I would not growing for terpenes. For the past decade, I don't care about potency, my friend. I care, of course, I don't want to be smoking and not feeling anything. But I care about the experience, for all of the experience from the moment that I open my jar,
Sure.
from the moment I open the groove bag and I take that first aroma that comes in my nose, and then when I grab it, when I look at it, when I break it down, when I roll it and I smoke it, and I like to do all of it. I don't like to do the cones. I like to feel it. And when you do your first dry puff and it tastes the same as the smell,
Yeah.
for me that's already, whoa, okay, we
Yeah,
are
you're
on into
ready.
something. We are on into something. And then you smoke, and then you get that third profile coming into you, and then something else different comes completely different outside,
For
and my
sure.
mind keeps blowing.
You
And
know
with
what?
time, and sorry.
No, it's all good. I love the passion behind what you're saying there because it makes me think of someone who is an educated consumer versus an uneducated consumer, right? So, with like the US market, we have this issue where everything is based on THC. And I know that that's something that's widespread just across the world of consumers with cannabis. Now that there is the ability to test for THC and that it's the largest constituent of the cannabinoids typically, that's the number that people are looking at. And now that they have access to terpene testing, people are interested in that as well. But now they're saying, I want something with a lot of terpenes and a lot of THC. And they're not necessarily even thinking, oh, what have I had in the past that has worked really well for me? They're just going for the most,
Numbers.
and it's really odd. And so it's almost like the term that comes to mind is the tyranny of numbers, where because we can test for it, people now use that as the qualifier for what is good, versus experiencing something, you know, saying, wow, I really like this, and then looking at, what's in it so that you can try to find that elsewhere. It's not necessarily driven off of an experience-based thing. It's driven off of a perception of what they want to experience based on
Everything.
some weird number system that we've It, it's
You know,
it's unfortunate,
people.
but it's where we're at.
It is, and they also, I think, in general, weed right now it's way stronger than it was 20 years ago with the breedings, with everything, which is okay. It's good. I probably, if I would smoke the same weed that I would smoke 20 years ago, right now it probably wouldn't do anything to me. But on this process, they're losing a lot of things like the CBD. 10, 20 years ago, weed has a balance of THC, a balance of CBD, and then there was the terpenes and everything else. Right now, there's zero CBD, there's a big number on THC, and now the terpenes are coming in lower numbers. It's 3, 5, 10% or something like this. It's the highest it goes on the terpenes. I don't know, but it's really low numbers. And people are looking for that with the bigger it's better, bigger it's better, bigger it's not bigger it's better. It's the balance that it makes it better. It can be really low, maybe 10% THC, but those 5% terpenes in there will make you experience that by itself. The high will be much more pleasurable and last longing. And another thing that I know that's from old weeds, I like to call it like this, and new weeds. Old weeds, like the whole skunk, the whole super skunks and all of that, they would last for they would last, I don't know, for 2 hours, 3 hours, but you would get that trippy feeling from the medicine for a long time. Right now, with the new weeds, you may get that, but it's 10 minutes peak, 15 minutes peak. And then you need to smoke again to keep
Right.
that going. It's not, I don't know if this is also because
It
we
might
are
just be
now more
tolerance.
used and our tolerance also may not help to this, but still I do a break for a week for on smoking. It's very rare, but it happens. And when I smoke again, I feel it straight away. But it's not that 2 hours that I don't have to think about rolling another one. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
After 45 minutes, I'm already thinking about rolling another one, and so on. And I think this was the breeding out of everything to put in the THC numbers in it.
Yeah.
That I don't know. This is just me thinking.
I think that's
I don't know.
definitely a I think that's definitely a part of it. Another thing that I've talked about before on the show is that there's just more availability of different genetics, all of which are going to have different THC overall cannabinoid and terpene profiles, as well as whatever other volatile organic compounds are in there. And due to the fact that we all have unique endocannabinoid systems, if you're sifting through a million different strains to try and find the ones or the twos that work for you, you know, then that's going to be a lot harder than sifting through the 5 or 10 strains available in your local area at the time, 10, 20
True.
years ago. So, and I know that there is a lot more available, but not necessarily at the level that we have now due to the more popularization of cannabis culture worldwide that we've been able to see through the different legal and recreational markets that have come online. It opened up just so much more access to information, strains, cultivars, the trading of genetics, whether it be seed stock or clones, and now with tissue culture, the ability to transfer a lot of those different genetics worldwide with ease and not risk exposure or incrimination due to those different aspects of what we can do now.
It's a
It's
fascinating world.
it opens up so much more availability for different cultivars that there's the benefit of it where if you find something that really works for you now, like you might be able to find something that works so well for you now that you may not have ever been able to find before because it just wasn't available. Whereas the sifting of getting through all those different strains now is going to take so much longer that it almost seems impossible to actually find that super unique, um, you know,
Unicorns are getting more
yeah.
unicorns every day.
Unicorns are becoming harder to find. Yeah,
Yeah, it is. It
absolutely.
is true. There's
Um,
there's way more options to look for it, but there's way less unicorns. And if you really see, all the options kind of came from the same parents,
for sure.
you know. Then
When
they
maybe
crossed it and recrossed it and this, and that. But if you go to the base, there's Northern Lights, There's Durban poison. There's Afghani. There's this and that. And from this, the crosses with those 10, maybe 20, there are thousands
Yep.
that were born right now. And with legalization hitting all over the world, as you were saying, more people also it's playing, and which is great, man. This is a beautiful thing because otherwise the plant would not evolve. And tissue culture you were talking, it's something that really fascinates me. I don't know exactly, I never went too deep of it, but the fact that you can preserve the exact same thing without any pathogens, without anything, and a little thing like this for decades, I mean, it's crazy. And then you
Yeah.
can grow the same plant. It's crazy. And now there's AI also involved in seeds here. I don't know if you heard about it. AI can identify the seed, male or female. This is huge because I don't know if is something that will come up or not because there's a big market for feminized seeds around the world. But supposedly feminized seeds are weaker seeds than regular seeds, they say. If the regular seeds take out the male problem, which is for the home grower, I buy 10 seeds regular and then I have 8 males. This is a problem for a home grower. If you're in a
Right.
facility that you're searching, okay, this keeps going. Like for now, I'm growing the Minted Croco from Terpenes. It's a mutant plant, and it was 12 seeds. From the 12, I have 5 females. All of the rest was to kill. I have space. I can do this. I am playing. I don't mind if I'm losing time because I like what I'm doing. But if I only have a closet, like a 4x4 or something, and this is my grow, if I put 10 plants in there, it's because I want the 10 plants out. Or if I
Yeah.
put 5 in there, you know what I mean? So if with AI we can identify that this seed is female, exactly 100%, this is
I
huge.
I have to see that to believe it because there's
Huge.
yeah, that would be huge if it were something that an AI software could do, but I am very
I have to see it also with my eyes.
skeptical. Yeah, I have to see that happen with a proven regular pack of seeds and make sure they're not slipping a bunch of feminized seeds into the process to try and trick everyone into thinking that it works. But that's fascinating. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm going to have to look into that.
Go, go, go. I can send you a few articles on it after. It's with pleasure, and you can look for it. And it's a new thing. It's something that it's been talking about only for the past few months, I believe. At least I only realized about it a few months ago. But if this really is true, and if this really goes forward with it, I don't see why seed companies would not do this to them. I know there's a big market for feminized, but dude, you're selling feminizers anyway, so it's just regular that you were sure that it's a feminized. So let's see what the future has for us on this one. But I'm
Definitely. I
definitely
won't
very
say no,
curious.
like if it works, it works, but I'm not, I'm definitely trepidatious to be like, "Oh, for sure, that sounds awesome."
It's like the laser for the bugs. I will
Exactly.
have, I will love to have like a mini drone like this big going in my tent killing bugs.
Yeah.
But
Just set it off for 5 minutes a day. Um, what are some of the biggest setbacks that you've faced as a grower? Considering a lot of people that listen to this are home growers themselves, and everyone faces different problems within their grow, but we all have to learn to kind of bounce back from them. What are some of those setbacks that you've had to bounce back from?
honestly, the biggest one and that I struggle with, still even with decades of growing, I sometimes struggle with it is patience. When we're growing, I think this is the biggest thing on growing. It's you have to be patient for everything. In the beginning with the water, especially if you are a new grower, and there's a lot of things happening, and you want to do everything because it's everything is new. So in the beginning, you overwater them. Then you realize you overwatering. Then you will be underwatering them. This is all the process for you to learn and for people to learn. But I honestly believe that the biggest setback that we have it's ourselves with the hurry. We hurry to water. We hurry to trim, to defoliate. We hurry to harvest. And dude, if you are months and months and not months and months, but 3, 4 months surrounding a plant or grow or whatever, and then in the end you harvest it too soon, you're losing potential and you're losing weight. And in my humble opinion, you're losing 3 or 4 months of work because this is not the thing. So honestly, I don't know if this was the what you were looking back. I think patience and it's the biggest thing that we as growers need to learn and to accept and to embrace that planting is believing in the future. So believe in it because it will take time. It's the same as a potato, a strawberry, whatever you're putting on the ground. It will take time to grow, and you cannot rush nature.
For
You
sure.
really can't.
No, I think that's a great sentiment to deliver to other growers is patience is key. Um, we have one of the fastest growing crops growing for us, either in our home grow or outdoor setting or whatever. And so, we don't need that much patience with cannabis because you can have from seed to the pipe or bowl or whatever it is that you're using to smoke that final product with, yeah, 4 months maybe.
For months,
Um,
you can
so
do it. Yeah.
there's not a lot of other plants that you can say, "Hey, I'm planting this apple tree, and I'm going to eat an apple in 4 months." That doesn't happen.
No, that doesn't
So
happen.
you know, I feel like be appreciative for the fact that it grows so fast, but learn a little bit of patience is a definite good thing to relay to other growers. I do see people harvesting still too soon, and sometimes giving it those extra few weeks, it
Makes a
just
whole lot
makes
of
for such a
difference
different product in the end.
in
But
flavor,
that
potency.
wasn't necessary. That
Sorry.
I guess that wasn't necessarily what I was thinking about when I asked the question of biggest setbacks. But maybe a better way to phrase it is one of the things that I like to ask growers is what are some of the biggest or what is a lesson that you've learned from a failure in your garden, and then what is a lesson that you've learned from a success in your garden?
Lesson from. Let me see. So for failures, overwatering is it's really bad for you because you will stuck your plants. I think it's worse to overwater than to underwater for the single reason that a dry plant, if it will look almost dead, but if you give it water to it will bounce back. And overwater plants will have problems on uptaking nutrients, will have problems on root raw, will have problems in a lot of things. So overwatering is definitely a big thing, a big lesson in the garden, and it's something that it takes time to learn. Either it by weight on the pot. This is something that when I was not doing automatic waterings without a pot, I was something that I found myself doing it. It's I know how much it is without watering. Now I water, I know how much it is, and then I will look for that same weight for me to water again. This was how I myself fight the overwatering because in the beginning I was overwatering, especially in the first years. Everything was just water, and we would go in water, and same planks they drink a lot and they don't mind that, and if especially if the water goes away and it doesn't stay in the soil. But
For sure.
most of them they don't like overwatering.
No.
They will get stuck on growth, they will get stuck on eating, they will get stuck on everything. That
Yeah.
I think this is one of the biggest lessons for me in growing is the waterings. And
It
not
almost
not
falls in line with patience, right? Like sometimes when you first start growing, you're like, I got to make sure that the plant has water. And rather than being patient and allowing for it to use the water that it already has to a certain level so that you don't create anaerobic or hypoxic conditions in the root zone and cause these different root health issues, um, having that patience to wait for that dry back, make sure that it happens. I do see a lot of growers where they're just like, I got to make sure that I get that water on there like right now.
I stop rushing the waters. I actually prefer to get into the room and see them like kind of drippy. Oh man, I forget to water for 2 3 days. I need to water because I'm never that time that longer away from them than to finding them droopy just because of the overwatering. That's for sure.
For sure.
Lessons learned when mistakes were making. I don't know. Super crop. I learned myself from mistakes. I did not learn. I did not know it. Did not knew it was super cropping until later on, because super cropping happened when you're working and you break it, and oh fuck, it's that broken, and that suddenly that broken branch becomes the best fruit in your garden. This was how I learned myself about super cropping, and I started to implement this a few decades ago without reading or seeing anything. And nowadays, now I know it's super cropping, but this all began with me breaking branches and that branch making the best buds in the whole tent. And
Oh,
then I
that's
started,
funny.
okay, wait, this may be or may not be, let's see. And I start breaking them for myself. Now I go there, I gently, and like I super crop them if they go too big. But this one was a mistake that took me to a lesson, and one that I use still today. And it's been a few years. Now I know the names and the techniques for them. But this is, I don't know. I'm curious about the new one. This one, it's something that I need to do it. I need to find time and courage to do it, because it happened to me 2 times. And on the 2 times that it happened, I will explain in a second. I believe that plants grew better. What was this? Everybody has this big paranoia that the little taproot from the seed, the first one, cannot be touched, cannot be broken, cannot be nothing because it's very sensitive. The 2 times that I broke it in half and I still put it in the soil, plants grew amazing
Hmm.
compared to the rest of it. So what I want to do, this is probably something that I will be doing maybe on the next run, on a few couple of runs, is I'm going to do 10 seeds, and I'm going to purposely cut 5 of them in half, the tiny roots, and the other 5 I'm going to leave it normal, and I'm going to plant them. And I want to see if the 5 that I cut the root in half, the mini taproot in half, will all grow better than the other 5. If that happens, then I will know for sure that this was just not a casual thing that happened, because the 2 times that this happened, and I realized it happened because when I grabbed the seed, the half of the roots still stuck there, but
Yeah,
I still had put it in soil. They grew amazing. So I'm curious to do this
that's
test.
fascinating. It makes me think of root pruning with bonsais, where you
Exactly.
you have the bonsai in a small pot where the roots are constricted to a certain amount of substrate, and then periodically you go in and you trim off the extra roots, add some fresh substrate, get it back in there, and you get this explosive growth for the next amount of time. I've even helped other growers where they've had, they have limited space and they have to keep all their moms in like a 1 gallon pot or something along those lines. So they'll, every few months, they'll, if they don't have the ability to clone it right then, or if they let it go too long so it's root bound and you don't have really good healthy growth, you go in, you pull the root ball out of the pot, you shave a quarter to a half inch off of all the different sides with like a bread knife or something, and then you just put fresh substrate in there and put it back in, and you get that new root growth from the root pruning, and you get healthy new
Healthy
upper
plants.
growth, and you can take a clone so that you can reset it. Um, and that's also what works, or why fabric pots tend to work
Works
fairly
so well.
well, where you can use a smaller fabric pot for a larger plant, where you might need a larger plastic or solid pot for the same size plant otherwise.
This is because of the roots getting into outside and sending the signal out, and then instead of going around the pot, it creates a bigger mass of roots inside of the whole pot, filling up
Right.
the soil better and uptaking better nutrients, I believe. In plastic pot, this doesn't happen. The roots, once it hits the hole, it will try to keep going because there's nothing there signal. There's no hair. There's nothing signal. So she keeps searching for the deeper place, and this is why you get those pots with those big roots. When you using fabric pots and you take the roots out, you take a block.
Yep.
It's a block of soil and it looks like it doesn't have any roots, but there's a lot of roots in there.
But it's
In
like
the
a
other
solid
pots,
root
no,
mass,
you
yeah.
get the big massive root down there. You get the roots going around, and then in the center of it, there's roots, but It's not the same. It really is not the same.
Yeah, the overall root mass is definitely smaller. If you were to grow the same plant in a fabric versus a plastic pot, and at the the same time frame, you'd find a greater root mass in the fabric pot by like the end of 30 days.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I
Um,
don't know the name of it, but it's because of the sign. It's the same happens that when the plant gets to the soil, it's his hair, and it signals the roots to go down, and she keeps
hmm.
growing. I think it works the same way with the fabric pot.
Yep, absolutely. I think that for the fabric pots and for that, that would be called air pruning. And
Air
then,
pruning. That was the word
yeah,
exactly.
and then you can also just physically prune the roots yourself if you need to accomplish the same thing in a smaller pot, or if you need to remain in that smaller pot for a longer period of time for whatever reason.
In
Um,
veg, it's no problem to do that. They
no,
will bounce back. They will love
yep,
it. If it's not an autoflower.
yes, absolutely. Don't do that with an autoflower, folks.
Don't do that with an autoflower.
You're going to trigger it to flower. So, that those being some of the points where you found, you learned from something that went wrong, in your grow, where you didn't intend for the outcome to be what it was, but you learned from it. What are some of the things where you went into the process of being like, I'm going to add this because I think that it's going to increase X, Y, or Z. So where have you found a success in your garden like that, where you added something in and it did exactly what you wanted it to do?
Mycorrhizal.
Okay.
Seriously. And when I first heard about mycorrhizal, I could not believe it myself that it would do that. Then I start researching, and I find out that I believe it's in Japan. They use mycorrhizal to do the subway, meaning they place it the stations and they put the mycorrhizal, and the mycorrhizal in the beginning made the big mess, and then it creates the perfect roads, and they did the subway that way. I'm not sure if it was Japan, Taiwan, somebody
Yep.
there did that.
Yeah, they used like a mycelium culture to do
Mycelium,
that.
and
Yeah.
I start researching and researching, and I start realizing, man, this is the biggest network that exists on Earth. There's
Yeah.
nothing bigger than mycorrhizal in the world. We can think that no, it's connected from elsewhere to everywhere. I kind of believe that almost all plants in the world are underconnected because of the mycorrhizal, not the ones in the pot because they're by themselves, but nature itself. And when I first time I implemented the mycorrhizal, in this case was Aptos the mycorrhizal in my plants. I did a side by side because I wanted to make sure that it would make big difference or no difference. And it's crazy. The big roots, the white roots, the channels. A root without mycorrhizal, it grows like this and it has a little tiny hair. Normal roots. A root with mycorrhizal, it grows like that and it's thousands of hairs going all over her. And all of that things are receptors, are connectors that will help the plant improve. So I really think that the mycorrhizal was definitely the biggest thing that I saw results, and it was exactly what I was looking for and what I was expecting. All of the rest, it is, but it is not. This was beyond my expectations, actually.
That's
This and
cool.
the under canopy lights. The under canopy, but this is still a new factor. I'm still, it's just my second run, so I don't know.
Yep.
But for my first run, that really was crazy, man. I was expecting, I was not expecting almost double the harvest, and I get almost double the harvest that I would do on a
Wow.
4x4.
That's awesome.
So it was crazy. It was crazy, and it was not double the power because the ICL 300s they are 150 watts each one, I believe. So it's 300 watts more in the tents, and on top it's 700, meaning it's not double. It's not 1,400. It's not supposed to go double, and
Yeah.
it went almost double, which was I know it was first run, so I don't know. I still need to experience more to see if this actually is over expecting what I was expecting, or if this was just the perfect run and now I'm gonna be it's gonna be hard to do it again and to replicate the results. Let's see, let's see.
Yep. Because we've definitely found that we are getting a lot of a or a lot higher of a yield with the under canopy lights, but it's definitely not double or anything. But like you said, we're not adding double the total, wattage input to that space. And even still with the under canopy lights, like if we're adding an additional 30% to the overall wattage input, we're not seeing a 30% increase in yield. But we
Very
are still
close to
seeing
it.
an increase in yield, and the biggest thing that I see is you get an increase in overall uh, uniformity of quality, where the quality that you typically go for me, my favorite flowers are typically about 3 or 4 nodes down from the topmost bud, and because it's usually like picture perfect, it isn't grown into another bud, so when you dry it down and snap it away from the stem, it gives you a really good representation of the morphology of that plant and the flower structure and the trichome density and the bract development and everything about it. You get a really nice representation of the plant, where the lowers would always, they'd either be with some cultivars, they'd be dense still, but they'd just be small, popcorny. They wouldn't have great color. If the plant up top turned nice and purple, sometimes the lowers stay a little greener, or maybe they'll be more of like a light version of whatever color you get at the top. And they, won't necessarily always develop fully, so they'll sometimes still have white hairs, or just not be
Mature
there,
enough when you
not
harvest
mature,
it.
right? But when I added the under canopy lights, I noticed that everything across the canopy, typically, as long as I'm keeping that overall canopy density within the range of what my irrigation can provide for it and what I can do for it based on environmental factors, I can see uniformity almost from that third or fourth bud down from the top, because those tops still do what they do and they get dense and packed together at the very end. But from about that third or fourth node down, all the way down through the plant, I see a very similar morphology. And so I can turn a lot of what would be, B's or C's in my
Hey,
buds. If you're separating them out where you have A's, B's, and C's in terms of the quality and the look and the overall size and everything, I turn a lot of the B's into A's, and I turn a lot of the C's into B's or A's, even in some cases, as long as I'm okay with having smaller flowers in that A's category. They still hold up when you look at it as color and trichome density and overall flower density. So that's where I found, like, I'm super happy with that, because typically I would get like 20 to 30% of the overall
popcorn.
harvest wouldn't necessarily be something that you could in the recreational market sell as this
Oh,
top quality flower. You could press
like,
it, sure, but that's a whole different aspect that you would need like a specific license to do that in the recreational market. And
okay,
so,
yes.
but if I can turn all of my flowers into A's, and I can just make more pounds that are resellable, or kilos
That's
depending on the
better,
market
of
that you're
course.
in, that's well worth it for me. And I feel like for home growers, if there is an aspect to the consumption of cannabis for, any other grower out there, whether it be home grower or just a consumer that's going to a recreational dispensary and picking up flower, there's an aspect to it about the flower itself and how it looks and how it feels, and, how it grinds up and how it breaks apart, that if you can make a little bit more uniformity across the board, that even for a home grower, you're going to have more stuff that you're enjoying than,
It's gonna last you for longer also,
oh,
because
yeah,
all of those popcorns that you if you press, you would press, if you make RSO or if you make whatever you used to do it for that, now they cease to exist. There
right?
will be a very small amount of it if you do the good pruning, if you do a good defoliations, and if you clean enough down there, but leave enough still. That enough still that you leave, it's bud now. It's smokable bud. It's not popcorn like you were saying, or it's not under development like you were saying. Now the plant finishes from top to bottom, pretty much at all at the same time. While before this run, I would think on, okay, maybe I harvest half of the plant, but I will still leave that harvest half to finish because I see there's potential over here for it to still mature and grow. This did not happen with the last run. I end up harvesting two top of the plants earlier, but this was because of bud raw trying to get in, and this was my way of saving the closets. This is a very important thing for everybody that is growing. It's when you're growing a very dense and packaged room, and that thing was really scrogged and super dense, and buds get too dense, airflow it's very important. And even with good airflow, even with good conditions, bud rot can appear. And
Yep,
early detections, it's very, very important because otherwise it's all your work going bananas because it will spread really fast. So I found one, I took it out. Then on the next day, I found another one coming here. So I decided all the big tops on top of the ones that were affected, I took them out. This was the sole reason why I harvested them before because honestly, the whole room in this case and or the whole plant was maturing at the same level, at the same pace, at the same rhythm, and this was beautiful to see. This was the first time I ever saw this. It's a mature pop, not popcorn, but a mature ball down there at conjunction with there through the whole canopy to the whole room. This was something beautiful, and then I'm curious to
yep,
see if it will happen here or not.
for sure. Yeah, I always will tell people also if they're facing any sort of potential bud rot scenarios or botrytis or anything that would affect the overall flower yield that you might get out of a space due to um, you know uh, pathogens or other I'm blanking on the word right now, but these different mycology pathogens that you might face, molds or mildews, right? That by topping your plants early on and producing more tops for that one pot, you have the opportunity to make those overall top colas a little bit smaller each. I feel like each plant, and this is just anecdotal evidence, but I feel like each plant has a certain amount of potential for overall yield based on the pot size that you're using. And if you dedicate all that whole plant into producing one cola, where you don't top the plant, so you still do have side branching, so it still does kind of disperse that energy across a large canopy. But if you do have that one top cola where it is going in and it's getting like a higher ppfd, maybe the environment there is a little bit more ideal for overall growth and development, then you're gonna get a lot larger of a cola, but that's going to create a lot more potential for pathogens to get into it and to take hold and ruin some of the yield. So if you top your plant and you let that energy spread out across the canopy so that all the tops are kind of uniform, then you can reduce that by having smaller buds. And even in some cultivars in a commercial space, I've found that you get a more desirable morphology as well if you spread that energy around to a lot more upper bud sites rather than just one large upper bud site and a
Agreed.
bunch of side branches. The only you know, the only issue that I've ever found with that is that I don't like topping for um, any sort of any sort of growing style typically, because if you look at it as a top-down sort of planular view of a given canopy space, if it's completely flat, let's say in a 4 by 4 tent, then you have 16 square feet of canopy that the light is hitting, that you're able to absorb and photosynthesize with as the plants. But if you have peaks and valleys, so if you keep those upper colas on, but then so you'll have almost like one upper canopy where let's say you have 9 plants in that 4 by 4 space, you have 9 upper colas, right? And then you have a lower canopy where all the side branches kind of came up to. You have these peaks and valleys, and if you leave all the leaves on there, then technically with those peaks and valleys, you're spreading out that 4 by 4 space into a larger footprint. And I don't have the math in front of me, but I believe you get about like 1.5 to 1.6 times the overall canopy space. So rather than being 16 square feet, you're like over 20 square feet at that point of overall, like highly photosynthetically
Synthetic
potential
flower.
within that canopy. So you can increase your overall yield by doing that by capturing more photons as they leave the light and enter the canopy. But like I said before, it's very case dependent where if you have massive colas that are going to get rot because let's say you can't control part of your environment or it's just too big and it just always happens or there's some genetic potential for
This was
different
genetic, I
pathogens to
believe.
take hold. Yeah, it's that's where you need to then potentially top your plants or do something to manipulate the canopy to create a more desirable flower structure so that it doesn't have those potentials for pathogens.
For this one, I tried it all, my friend. This was a closet with 6 different genetics, so it was normal for them to grow different.
Yeah.
And funny enough, the younger one, the one that came later, because two of them did not germinate it, so I decided to bring the papayas up later on. So she was 2 weeks younger than the rest of the room. Oh, I'm making balloons. She was 2 weeks younger than the rest of the room, and she was the one that stretched or that bulked the most and higher. So I super crop her. I bend her. The scrog net on the top, she was topped. That I use on the top, I did not use for support. I used the scrog nets so that after making the super crop to hold her there. Because I would super crop and the next day I would super crop again and the next day.
Yep.
So this particular one, despite topping, was growing this like this much distance from the LED up there. She was, I don't know, crazy numbers down there. And despite having airflow, she grew colas like this, all of them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was, and I cannot sacrifice the whole room just for that one. So I had to keep the environment at 60% of humidity. In my case, this is what I like to do in flower. Actually, I know it's a risky thing for pathogens, is this and that, but they like it. And
Yeah.
if you have no problems in there, I do my whole flowers at 60%, maybe 55 by the ends.
Yeah.
But I don't do like the most do, like 50, 45. Sorry,
I start at 77% relative humidity and then I'll work it down over time
to 60, 55
and finish
maximum.
with the daytime humidity being around 55 and the nighttime humidity being at 45 or so. Because I try to increase that temperature differential too. Um,
That Sorry, that's another thing I try to do the most when I can. It's to keep a very similar temperature from day and night. I try to bounce it the least I can. I find that if I get 20, I will be talking in Celsius, but I can actually tell you
oh, 20 Celsius, what's that like
it's 65.
78 degrees?
65, yes. If I have it, let's go 24 because it's a good one for cannabis to grow. So if I'm at 70, which is a good temperature, I try to keep it. I can only do this in summertime. I try to keep it the daytime and the nighttime same temperature.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's 70 at daytime, I will try and keep it 70 at nighttime. And in summertime, I can do this because I grew during the night cycle,
Sure.
meaning that daytime it's hot where I live. The temperatures goes up to uh, 90s, 100s. It's normal to be outside about 90s and 100s. So they are sleeping and they have the temperatures from the outside here that comes into the house that keeps it warm. So meaning that I get to in summertime, I'm able to grow at about 80, 70 to 80, both day and nighttime. And I find out that they like that. They really like that. That's why I like to grow in summertime more than I like to grow in wintertime. It's less humidity, first of all, and they grow more stable. They grow more beautiful. It's a little bit more expensive because of the AC that you have to run AC still to keep things on balance because temperatures sometimes go really high and you cannot do that. But then again, if you're growing in the night cycle, this means you have to work at night instead of working at day.
Yeah,
The temperatures from the night with bounce back with the LEDs, with everything, and you will create a more stable room which lets bouncing on temperatures and on everything. I think it's and I think that our medicine specifically, if she could grow always at the same temperature and always at the same humidity, that would be the perfect for her. I don't know because I could not do this from seed to harvest ever,
sure.
but this
I,
is something that I would definitely like to test. And if I had the meanings to do this, I would try this actually.
For sure. There's a lot of research on temperature differentials in greenhouse settings where, with certain flowering plants and stuff, and it's been proven to work in cannabis as well, you can run what's called a negative differential. So, a negative differential being the nighttime temperatures are greater than the daytime temperatures, a neutral differential, which is what you're talking about, where the daytime and nighttime temperatures are the same, and then a positive differential, where the daytime temperatures are greater than the nighttime temperatures. And so, one thing that has been found with cannabis is that if you run a negative differential earlier in the flowering cycle, where the nighttime temperatures are greater than the daytime temperatures, you can actually reduce the overall stretch that the plant goes
Gets more
through
compact.
when you go through that stretching bolting phase of the flowering period for the plant. And then everywhere from that all the way to a positive differential can adjust that stretch on the plant to where an extreme positive differential where you have 10,
She will just
um
grow and looking
yeah,
for the
you have
light.
10 degrees or
So,
more in Fahrenheit. I'm talking 10
yeah, it's
degrees
okay, it's okay.
Fahrenheit. Then you will you'll increase the ability for the plant to stretch by increasing that positive differential. So I've used that before in an indoor setting because I over vegged my plants, right? And so I had to reduce the overall stretch because I only had a certain canopy height that I could
Achieve.
safely maintain for the production of those plants. And it does work. It's not a perfect thing. It doesn't. There's different research on it where you can do it for like the first 15 or 30 minutes after the lights are turned off, or initiating the dark period. And then there's other research about doing it right before the lights come on and doing this negative differential swing, but then maintaining a neutral or a positive differential through a later period of the night
Okay.
cycle. So there's a lot more research that I feel like could be done with that, as well as having more people try to apply this research that is done on other crop plants to cannabis, where it could actually help us as home growers and commercial growers, um, you know, take advantage of the different seasons and different temperatures and different changes within the environments that we're facing, and try to use them to our advantage based on vegetative timing or reduction in electricity, if you can run the AC less at night, or if you can run the heat less at the daytime or at night, or whatever it may be.
Whatever the
Um,
situation is,
yeah, there's a
it,
lot there that I feel like could be applied, and I always I feel like I'm saying on this podcast a lot that this is just another crop plant. It's just another agricultural product, and we should definitely be looking at the research that's done for other agriculture and how it can apply to us, rather than just trying to separate cannabis out completely because it is our special plant.
it's our special plants, and it can take a little bit higher numbers than most of the plants can take, and that's why people, I think, put it in a special, because if most of plants can take 800 ppfd, our plant can go up to thousands and something if they can eat this. But they're all plants in the end. They're seeds that grows, and they'll take care. Take, for instance, tomatoes. I grow tomatoes the same way I grow wheat. I plant them, and then I clean the bottoms, and I leave the plant grows up. And once the plant is up, I just let it grow. So it's pretty much the same as wheat, and it grows better. Yeah, I find out that if I let It grow all over the place. That I don't have as many good tomatoes as I would have,
Yep.
and I find myself with the same problems that I have in here, which is poor airflow. There's no light penetration. There's this and that, bringing me problems later on. But our plant is definitely special. She can take some pretty damn high numbers on everything, man. It's on foods, on PPFD, on I mean the amount of photons that this girl can take, it's crazy. But then
Yeah.
again, you go outside in the sun in the middle of the day and you take your PPFD meter, and the numbers are crazy, and all the other plants are growing still. But you do those numbers for them plants inside of a greenhouse and you kill them all.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
it
it's
it's a unique plant in certain ways, but it definitely does what other plants do. And yeah, we shouldn't just try to limit ourselves to only what applies to cannabis through a cannabis lens. We should try to definitely look at it as growers overall, because we can grow so many different things with the same methods that we use for cannabis, and we can improve our growing of cannabis by using the same methods we use for other plants as well. So I feel like this is a great place to start wrapping up the show a little bit. One of the questions that I did want to make sure that I ask you though is, for anybody that's watching this video on YouTube, they'll notice that Dog Doctor is wearing a mask to protect his identity. And, you know, we have a lot of listeners in the US, but we do have listeners in the different countries of Europe, as well as I know that I've seen through some of the analytics, we have some viewers in Australia and South America and in South Africa. And, there's a lot of different places in the world where cannabis is still not even just regulated, but fully illegal and punishable by
prohibition lands
some
all over the world.
severe laws and legislation. And coming from your perspective with all that in mind, where would you like to see change in the cannabis community and the cannabis industry, and just kind of that overarching group that is cannabis users, growers, and people that are involved?
I would love, first of all, I would love for this plant to be discriminalized all over the place because it makes no sense that people go to jail for a plant, in my mind. But in its natural stage, it's not like, okay, cocaine comes from, no, cocaine does not come from a plant, it comes from a plant and from a chemical thing with this, that, and that, and they make it. This is just something that God gives us. It grows, you harvest, it's free. It's like a tomato, it's like anything else. So for the first, I would love to see this happening all over the world, which I will believe that it will happen eventually, but it still will take time for this to happen. And I would like to see people to take up the step of, even if it's with masks, like I am with a mask, I know, but people need to be more open and need to be to talk with each other more about these plants and demystify it. I don't know if the word
Yeah,
exists.
demystify. Yeah.
Demystified what they did really good mystifying.
Yeah.
Because if you really think about it, 60, 17 years ago, this plant was just a plant. Some people would smoke it, others would not, but it was not a crime. And then with the hippie selection and all the story that we all know, came the prohibition, came this and all the propaganda, and they make it look like most of the world right now, like if you go and talk with the generation of my parents and my grandma, they think of this as something really bad and something because they paint it in the really dark. This is the getaway drug to this is the start for that, and this is nothing of that. This is something that we all have inside of us. We have an endocannabinoid system. We don't have a cocaine or a methamphetamine or whatever system. No, this is something bad. Whatever, everybody can do whatever they want, but I believe it's bad. This plant is not bad. It's here. It can be used in a bad way, like everything. Anything can be used in a bad way, but this is not here to make us bad. It's here to help us. And I would love to see people be more open and going online. The mask came from the GML show, and I was going and covering the camera each time I go, and I think I need to find a solution so that I can speak more openly, but still show, and if my face is not coming. So I found at the time sadomaso mask from a dog because my name was Dog Doctor, and I started wearing that. And after a while, I realized that I needed something more, not so, I don't know, something better looking to my mind. And I get this, which allows me to come like with you on a podcast, for instance, and be talking and sharing my experience. And I really think that people should lose the scare because the most people that do things like we do, the more normal it becomes, and the faster we will have this available for everybody. By all means, I don't believe that cannabis is for everybody, not at all. But I do believe that not having an option, it's not a good thing. So
Yep.
there's nobody died with from weeds. I mean, now with the extractions and all the abuses and the food, I'm pretty sure that pretty soon we will have somebody die from not directly from the weed because you need like 5 kilos of THC or something to for
Right.
your body to collapse. But the same way alcohol you can drink and drive and have an accident, they will blame weed somehow on the aspects on this. But she's not really the problem. The problem is we make it the problem. We
Yeah.
should be talking more openly about it and be more receptive about it. And I believe that this will happen when people not come out of the closet. It is maybe not a good word for it, but when people start to be open to at least understand it. And this is happening now with the legalization happening all over the place. You have people that, okay, there's little children's actually taking this. There's this. If they're giving this to a children with epilepsy and it's actually helping, this cannot be that bad of a thing.
Hmm.
And things are opening. But I definitely encourage if people are not shy to a point that they don't mind talking, they should definitely go out and check out the forums because we have a huge online community right now. And there's one thing that I love about this community. It's a very open community.
Yeah.
So once you start talking, people will talk back to you.
Absolutely.
It's not like if you go for a kitchen, for example, if you're working in the kitchens, chefs they talk, but they don't share secrets. You know what I mean? It's my secret, my family secret. It's my pride. I'm not telling you because after a while you will open your restaurant and I will lose my sort of. And there is, of course, there is in if you work in big facilities, probably there's the secret for the facility, this and that. But in general speaking, we are very open mind on sharing our knowledge or on sharing our mistakes, our lessons, our learnings. And this makes this community a very special one in terms of possibilities of growing and of becoming a wider thing than it is right
Right.
now. So I definitely
Absolutely.
encourage people to don't be afraid of being themselves. I don't want them to be lying or to be somebody else because I think there's too many people so for us to be them. But this is if this is something that you like, talk about it with
Right.
your friends, with your family. Don't demystify it and help us all to get this plant available to who may or may not need. Because by all means, I have friends of mine that cannot smoke weed. They get the paranoias, they get this, they get that. And I actually think it's the genetics. If you get the paranoia, there's probably some different genetic for you that will work for your endocannabinoid system. But again, it's not for all. So this
No,
this is a different thing.
I agree. Like my mom gets anxiety from smoking anything with a high THC content in it, but if she has a CBD gummy or an edible, then she's extremely happy with the results of that. And I've met plenty of other people that cannabis just isn't for them, but that's no reason to maintain a stigma towards people who use cannabis. Just
Exactly.
as you wouldn't necessarily judge someone for having a glass of wine or a beer after,
Exactly.
at the end of a day while they're eating dinner or something, you shouldn't uh, be judging or or retaining that stigma towards people who are using cannabis in the same way. But like you said, it can be abused just like anything else. You know, food can be abused, right? We have all sorts of different ways that people abuse things in life. So, you know, moderation, I guess, would be a good thing to put in there, but also understanding your limitations and using, you know, a cultivar or a strain of cannabis that works for you with the correct cannabinoid and terpene profile. All these different things, they, you know, they require so much more uh, research on the part of those who are producing these products, as well as understanding and research on the consumer's end of things, where they can try to find what works best for them. Um, yeah, I think that's a great sentiment to have, that, you know, allowing for more access in different parts of the world, and giving people an opportunity to learn
To
more
know
about
it,
this plant.
to learn it.
um yeah, you know, like that's why the show's called The Way We Grow, because I want to make sure that people um hear these different stories of growers, so that the community itself can grow and become more knowledgeable, and have the ability to share that knowledge with people, and show that there are just a lot of different, you know,
Ways. There's a
unique
lot of
and
ways, but
normal
yeah.
people that use cannabis and that grow cannabis and that are part of this world. Um, so I think that's a great answer. So thank you so much. And we do just have a couple of quick wrap up questions that I always like to add in. So what's your favorite strain of all time?
And I feel that that one has a no right answer because I'm in a constant looking for that runs that I talked to you about. It's something that it's still here in my mind, so it's definitely something that I'm looking for that unicorn again, and maybe I find it, maybe I not. There was something special on the passion fruit terpenes in that plant that I still think about it today. So it's probably among my favorites, but I don't like to say I have a favorite for a single reason. I like to have different jars with different varieties, different effects, different flavors, and I see this as food. If I'm
Right.
eating bread every day, I'm gonna get nauseous of eating bread. If I'm eating sausage, it's gonna be the same with that. It's so,
For
and
sure.
I like to eat in the same way I like to smoke. So I will need different effects. I will need different paladars. I will need different everything. So
Right. Variety is
depending
the
on
spice of
the
life.
exactly, depending on my mood, on my day, I may need something that it's couch locking, or I may need something that it's inspiring me for me to grow and work and do whatever. So I don't have a favorite. I like. It's not even more sativas because this is bro talk because. But for the general people, they call it sativa or indica effect, which is not true because there's sativa super heavy and there's indica super inspiral. So I like sativas for the day, sort of speaking, the uplifting, and for working. And I like the indicas, not indicas again, but the couch lock for the night time and for
Sure.
relaxation.
Absolutely.
That,
Yeah,
that that's
that's a great answer. You know, I'm also in the same mindset of it's hard to pick one strain that's your favorite, because there's, you know, I'm always trying new ones, and so it's
exactly.
hard to say that one was my favorite. I do, you know, look back in the past and think of things that I really enjoyed, that I kind of reminisce upon and wish that I had again, but I think that that's just me, you know,
Maybe if you
looking in the
have it
past through
again,
rose-colored glasses. Yeah. Um,
you
so, you know, the next question, of course, is going to be probably just as difficult, but who's your favorite breeder of all time?
damn, damn.
Ha.
Uh, that's a hard one. I mean, I like Humboldt. The Humboldt seed companies they have a real but this is because they look for terpenes more than they look for potency in their genetics. So every seed that I pop from them, it was always almost like a keeper. I cannot keep them, but they're all good.
Cool.
So if I have to go for one, I actually would go for that one because it was the one from the everything that I tried from them. I never had a bad seed in there. All of the rest, most of them, I didn't like this or I didn't like that or
Sure.
something. There's always something happening there, and they were the more stable ones. In
That's good to hear.
autoflowers, I have to go to fast buds. Honestly, they are by far the best autoflowers I grew. And I tried a bunch of different seed banks, and I'm not posting for them or anything. This is just my personal opinion. And they are very terpy plants.
Cool.
They're doing something there. The breeding they're doing, it's they're doing, and they are very stable. You grow like the blackberry. It's one of my favorites from them. It's a very peculiar one. It's almost like a syrup mixed with fruits, but at the same time has like this backstage of haze on it. I cannot really explain. It's really unique. And each time I grow, the plant grows exactly the same. So I have a feeling that if I grew 100 of them in a room, there will be like three or four that will be different, which is normal. And others don't do that. I grow a banana. In 6 months, I grow the banana, but it's taking like tangerine. It's no longer the banana.
Yeah.
And fast buds in that terms, they are really amazing.
That's
Caps off to
awesome.
them.
For sure. I don't grow a lot of autoflowers, but I have grown fast buds before, and they weren't bad. I just I never liked autoflowers personally because if I find something that's really good,
You
it's
want to
just
keep
so
it.
hard to find it again. Yeah, and you can't keep it around. But if you find a company or a breeder that is doing good work and creating stable genetics where you can at least sift through maybe a few different phenotypes for your setting, then maybe it is worth it for whatever it
I
is
think
that you
there's
might
time
need
and
it
place
for.
for autoflowers. If you're
Yeah,
running, for instance, a perpetual and you have always 24 or 18 hours place to place lights, why not put an autoflower there and you have an harvest in between?
sure.
Before they didn't have the terps. Now they are getting the terps. They getting good. So
That's
it's
good.
then it's in a taste. But this not being able to keep a clone, it's one of the things that in the beginning on the autoflowers was crazy because I always clone and now I cannot clone. Okay, so I like this and the next seed will not be this. That's a unicorn. I feel
Yep.
you on that one
It's
completely.
a true unicorn because you can't find it again. Yeah. All right. Well, last question. What's your most memorable cannabis related experience?
Man, you when you mean most memorable is the one that when I think about something that happens, that memory comes. It was the one of the first times I ever smoked super skunk.
Okay.
It was not even skunk, it was super skunk. And it was the first time I realized in my life I was about 17, maybe. I don't know the age, but it was around there. And it was I smoked it, and the other weeds and other things that I would smoke, you finished the joints and you would feel it. And I smoked it, I didn't feel nothing. Oh, fuck. I made another one, nothing. I grabbed the rest of it and I made the big fat one. And about half an hour after that last one, I found myself tripping like on acid, man. But really on acid. And at the times, I would from time to time take some acid, and I really and it's people would come. Are you okay, dog? Are you okay? No, no, man, I'm okay. But just leave me here. And this was the most intensive. And it was the first time ever that I realized that this is a sacred plant. This is not here for us to. It is here for us to play and for us to please us, but it's also here to teach us and to. It's a serious plant. It's. And this was when from that moment on, I believe that was when I start respecting the plant, as a being, as being part of us. Until then, it was just something for fun. It was just there. It was recreational. It was this. And from that point on, I realized it's not just that. Because it can take me places, it can make me see things, it can make me realize things. So it's gotta be sacred.
For sure. No, I mean that's a pretty powerful experience to have where, the sort of those time delayed responses that some strains can have. And then if you do end up over consuming, you can have a very profound experience that is going to leave a lasting impression. So I can totally understand how that kind of changed your perspective of the plant at the time. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, Dog Doctor. I really appreciate you joining me on the podcast today and telling more of your story so that more people can get out there and grow their own plants or, you know, participate in this community in their own way. But telling stories like yours where you are still in a state or a country that is prohibitive on the use as well as the growing of this plant, and being able to come on here and tell your story is extremely it's brave, but also so necessary for us to be able to continue to grow this community. And like I always say, that's the way we grow. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm the one that appreciate love you having me here and everybody. And if you in Europe, let me just bring up. I don't know when this will go on air, but I'm doing a mini cup. So if you just want to grow some European seeds, I will be sending some Aptus nutrients and some seeds and some groove bags to give everybody the same chance. I want to make this not the traditional cup where you find the final product is what it matters. For me, this will be the journey. The evaluation will be on the journey because I'm giving everybody the same chance, the same genetics, the same nutrients, and the same curing. So the whole journey is where I'm gonna evaluate, sort of speaking, people. And I don't know if I'm gonna have 10 entries or 100 entries, but I feel that this is something that if you're in the prohibition lands, we will be sending them everywhere. Of course, at your own risk. Please be whatever you are, be safe. But it would be an honor and a pleasure to have anybody that wants to join us on this journey.
Yeah, well, anybody that's interested in that, reach out to Dog Doctor Official on Instagram and learn more from him, and we'll have maybe some of the viewers and the different people that have been on the show join you for that grow challenge.
It would be awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Well, awesome. Thank you again, Dog Doctor, and we will talk soon.
Thank you. Rose love, everybody. Thank you for having me. Seriously.
Growers love
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Rose love.